everybody's having an excellent day, excellent afternoon. Had a great stream yesterday and this morning. And now we're back. Today, I want to talk about the idea of quote unquote Masonic sludge, which is an interesting term. Uh, I heard of the term sludge in a actually in a economic context or corporate context. This idea of corporate sludge, and that got me thinking. Could there be potentially something called Masonic sludge? What is that? How does it work? How does it affect Freemasonry? How can we deal with it? So that's what I want to talk about today. But as always, we'll wait. The first hour will just be me hanging out, and the second hour will be the actual main topic. We do have, it looks like, Smokey, potentially with the hearts. I sent you the message, Smokey, for the co-stream, 5 p.m. my time, which I think is 4 p.m. your time, on my other channel. But for the time being, let's give it a few minutes. Let's see who joins. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Main topic today is going to be, once again, Masonic sludge. What is it? How does it affect Freemasonry? How can we combat corporate sludge? Masonic sludge in this case. And I haven't forgotten about this morning stream where they talked about the thurnal, one of the symbols within Freemasonry, the three-sided cube, basically. So we'll be talking about that, not because I still have to research it, because this symbol I actually know very little about, relatively speaking. So don't worry, though, I will be researching it, and I'll probably get to that discussion next week at some point. Yeah, so basically it'll be, what, 4 p.m. your time, 5 p.m. my time. We'll do that on my personal channel, but I do hope that you are doing well, and thank you for being here. To everybody watching, thank you for being here. I hope you're all having an excellent day. And how is things going for you, Smokey? How is life treating you? What is going on, Terrifier? Good to see you. Oh, that's nice. I hope the eggs are good. And how is it going for you, Dad? Are you resting up? Are you causing trouble? Do you have any plans for Halloween? Gonna go out trick-or-treating? Life is going well, B-A-F-A. However, I'm going to call you Baffa. I'm not from the US of A. I'm Canadian, born and raised. I live in Windsor, Ontario. However, as I always say, Canada is the greatest country in the world, partially because we have the greatest neighbors in the world. And how are you, B-A-F-A? I think you're new to the stream. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. Aspen Fox, I think you're new to the stream. I don't think I recognize your name. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing, if there's anything you want to talk about. That's fine. I mean, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump at all, but if she wants to, or he or she, I don't know if Aspen is a male or female name, wants to put that in the stream, that's fine. Yes, Baffa, I agree. Canada is awesome. So let me know what you want to talk about, Baffa. Are you interested in Freemasonry at all? Are you new to the stream? I don't think I recognize your name. What is happening, though? And let me know how you came across our stream. Welcome, Guilo. Thank you for being here from, I'm assuming, Italy. I hope you'll take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. Who are they? The Masons? They didn't give me a cool ring. However, my dad gave me a cool ring. Hold on just 1 second. I'll show it to you, Aspen. I'm not going far, I promise. See if I can grab this. Oof, down at the bottom. There we go. All right, I made it back. Here you go. This is the cool ring I got. Not every Mason has a ring. It's not something that every Mason gets or even wants. Not every Mason gets a ring from his family. Some are first-time members or first-time family members and purchase it themselves. However, yeah. So Aspen, I think you're new to the stream as well. I hope you hit the like and subscribe button and let me know if you have any questions on. No, they all do not have rings. Sorry, Aspen, to disappoint you. I've been a Freemason since 2007. And I've met many Freemasons who own rings. I've met many who do not. It's not a requirement that everyone has a ring. I'd say probably, honestly, maybe 50-50 who have rings or don't. Actually, maybe 70, maybe closer to 70% do, 30% don't. However, not quite that high, Aspen. However, I also think people need to remember, just because, and this is something I always try to remind Freemasons about, just because somebody has a ring, that also does not mean automatically that they're a Freemason. That's one of the biggest mistakes people sometimes make, Freemasons, right? You can purchase, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a secondhand shop or a pawn shop and discovered a ring just looks like that for sale. Some pawn shops buy Masonic rings in bulk because they just, people like to buy them. Sometimes people like to pretend they're Freemasons. Sometimes people like the symbol and don't know what it means. Sometimes people will come across rings or jewels. Let's say a family member passes away, father passes away. They come across a ring or other items within their belongings and just choose to wear it themselves. And they don't necessarily know what it means. So just because someone's wearing a ring or wearing a shirt or whatever it is that has a Masonic symbol on it doesn't automatically mean they're Masons. It is not. Freemasonry is not a religion of any sort, light or otherwise. No worries, Smokey. No worries at all. It's not Judaism, nor is it Christianity, nor is it Islam, nor is it any other religious kind of undertaking. No, Jews did not start Freemasonry. Freemasonry started in England or Scotland, depending who you ask. But either way, it evolved from stone Masonic guilds in the 15th and 16th century. So Freemasons, initially, it was actually stonemasonry. It was tradesmen who built things out of stone or shaped stone for human use, whether it be in buildings, stone tools, temples, whatever it might be, walls. And over time, speculative Masons, people such as myself, started to join. And basically, it became a social club or a civic club. But it wasn't started by Jewish individuals. It was not started as a religion of any sort. I think someone's been looking up some stuff online that's incorrect. right? Freemasonry borrowed ideas from many different religious groups, philosophies. It's borrowed from Islam, it's borrowed from Christianity quite heavily, Judaism. It also borrowed from Stoic philosophy, it borrowed from Egyptian mysticism. Chinese mythology made its way in there. Paul Lloyd says, do something with your life. Well, I like to think I'm doing something with my life by doing this stream and by being a Freemason. However, A, let me know why it is you think I'm Jewish, and B, not that there's anything wrong with being Jewish, I'd be happy to be so, and B, why you think I might not be doing anything with my life. Well, Paul Lloyd seems like a very unhappy person. So, Aspen, let me ask you, why did you think that Jewish people may have started Freemasonry? Because and I see a pride flag. So, what if I was a member of the LGBTQ community? What would be wrong with that? Hello, Castro. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. I hope you're having a great day. By the way, everybody watching this, don't forget, you can also give a super chat. Even just 99 cents helps out big time. Will be much, much appreciated. And once we get to 1 hour in, we are going to start talking about Masonic sludge. What is it? Kind of where the term comes from. To my knowledge, I think I coined the term. I don't think anybody was using it before me. And why I think it's important that we kind of be on the lookout for ways to reduce corporate sludge. Yes, I agree with my dad. We are all born equal. Paul Lloyd, you carry diseases and parasites. Well, I don't think I do. In fact, I'll give a little shout out here for something I believe in. Oh, in just 1 second. I actually, before I got here, before I started this stream this morning, I got myself my, let's see if you can see it, my vaccine. Hence, that's the Band-Aid. I got one in each arm. I got my COVID shot. I got my flu shot. So there you go. So I'm at least vaccinated against those two diseases. Any other parasites or diseases I may have, I guess we'll have to wait till my next annual checkup. I got one on each arm, and I'm in a wheelchair. So if my arms get too sore, I'm just not going to move anywhere. Which is better than if I got it in one arm, I'd end up just wheeling around in circles. So, Aspen, Paul, let me know, from whence are these negative views of Freemasonry coming, or from where? There absolutely is. I mean, I think within Freemasonry, the beautiful thing about it is it's about commonality of purpose, commonality of purpose, commonality of understanding. However, you're allowed to have individual interpretations of it, individual journeys within it. It's a beautiful combination of, like I said, common. The best way to think about it might be common purpose with individual expression. It's kind of like these tattoos, where every year me and my friends, we all go together to get tattoos. We all get Masonic tattoos, but they're all different. So it's like it's a common purpose, it's a common event, but the expression of it is individualized. I wouldn't want to join any organization that would seek to kind of stamp out individual expression or individual ideology. Paul Lloyd is a cranky fella, that's for sure. Castro, though, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Thank you again for being here. I've been here for the showed up. I've been here since 1 o'clock, or maybe like five after one. How is it going, Mr. Keeps? I hope that you're doing well, and I hope you're having a great day. Again, today's. What's wrong with my suit? This is a decent shirt. Oh, I guess there's the bleach stain. You know what? You knocked the bleach stain. Let me tell you, this is a fashion statement. Tomorrow, Gwen Stefani is going to be running around with a bleach stained shirt, just for the record. I will be talking today about Masonic sludge, what it is, how we can potentially reduce it. To my knowledge, I'm the first person to ever come up with the idea or the term Masonic sludge. I say that, it's probably somebody else has done it, but I'm the first one I think who's thought of it. Thank you, Grey Wolf. I do look great. Catalyst Vault, hello. I hope you're doing well. I got sore arms from both catalysts. I got sore arms from both. And thank you, Grey Wolf, for the positive comments. Honestly, though, I usually don't get sore arms from vaccine shots, and I've got enough of them that if it was going to be an issue, I'd probably have felt it by now. I got my record. I got 7 shots thus far, 7 COVID vaccines, as well as I don't know how many flu shots, and then hepatitis A and B for travel. And I'm still here, not glowing green yet for all the anti-vaxxers out there. I haven't grown my legs yet either, which I was hoping to do. But Grey Wolf, how are you doing? Thank you for being here. And speaking of rough ashers, Mr. Keeps, I am going to study up on the third ashlar, if you will, and then do a report about that or do a podcast about that sometime next week. I just got to study it up and research it first. Because like I said, it's not a symbol we are really exposed to here in Canada. It's kind of like the trowel. It's a very important symbol of masonry in the States. Doesn't really come up much in Canada, at least in Ontario. Yes, the broached thurnal. Doing good, thanks for asking. Trevor, I look completely different after my vaccines. Well, I hope that I look better. I mean, I'm always pretty ugly. So if anything, maybe the vaccines have made me more attractive. I don't know what that is, Paul Lloyd, but my suspicion is that's a very cruel joke. Maybe not even a joke. It's just a very cruel statement to say. If I'm guessing right. So I would hope, Paul, that you may try to live a life that is a little bit kinder, or a lot kinder, towards not just random people on the internet, but towards everybody. Though I suspect, Paul, you may be living not such a great life. You may be living a life that's a little bit angry and sad. So I hope that you right. I hope that you are able to maybe find a little bit of peace and happiness. Well, Trevor, I think it is. It's a very cruel joke, I think. Again, if it's to what I think is referring to. And it's unfortunate, right, that people would still say those type of things. And it's not about whether Freemasonry is or isn't Jewish. It's not Jewish. It's not affiliated with any religious organization. It's unfortunate those conspiracy theories exist. No worries, Mr. Keeps. You'll be back when you get back. But it's unfortunate that people would say those things online, or not even online, that people would just say those things at all. But nonetheless, people are people. And hopefully Paul is able to find at some point a little bit of happiness and a little bit of peace. Because my suspicion is Someone who says that is probably a pretty angry person. So, Trevor, how is it going? Thank you for being here once again. I hope that you're doing well. Let me know what's new and exciting. Let me know when you hear the term, excuse me, corporate sludge or Masonic sludge. What do you think of in that context? Do you have any thoughts as to what that could be? What is up, Joshua? Frega? I think I'm going to call you just Joshua. I hope you're doing well. Nice. I've never been there. I've been to Orlando, Florida. Never Tampa, but I just did a quick search. According to this, it's in Hillsborough. Hello, Dex. How's it going? Thank you for being here. Or Tampa Lodge. Is it on Kennedy Boulevard? I'm just looking at Google Maps. I think it'd be beautiful to check out. I'm sure it is. Is it? If I can find it now. It's pronounced Frawa. Okay. Well, hello, Frawa. Thank you for being here. That's a good market. That's exactly what the type of market should be. Your neighbor sounds very nice. Tell your neighbor I say thank you for helping my dad out. But the question then is, what are you giving your neighbor? If your neighbor gives you eggs, what do you give them? I am doing well, Joshua. Frawa, how are you doing? And by the way, Joshua, I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button if you're not done so already. Consider a super chat, maybe 99 cents. Every time you get a super chat, it helps out big time. Other people find the stream. Or just like and subscribe. Let me know, Joshua, do you have any questions, thoughts on Freemasonry? Positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. Tuik Mizan. Yo, how's it going, Tuik? You know her. She is from the curling scene. Curling, my favorite sport. Let me tell you. Well, I'm glad that she's bringing you eggs. And like I said, I hope you're doing well. Yeah, do either you or her have any plans for Halloween? Maybe you will be, maybe you're going to find yourself going out trick-or-treating. You should see if you can get some candy. Well, Trevor, it's not the exclusive thing I think about or the one thing I think about. I have other interests as well: professional wrestling, scary movies. I'd say those are my two biggest interests: professional wrestling, scary movies. I guess working out a little bit is something that I think about. And you're right. If what I thought about was Freemasonry exclusively every day, nothing else, then, I mean, I've been burnt out in the past, but that's a surefire recipe for getting burnt out. Having said that, I do think about Freemasonry every day. Not all day, but every day. And I don't know, I think it's just because it's something I love. And when there's something you love and also something you think you're good at, or you think you have the ability to contribute therein, you're likely to think about it more often. I saw clips of Black Phone. Haven't seen the whole movie yet. I want to. I also want to see Black Phone Part 2 because I hear it's really, really good. So the both movies are on my list. Black Phone 2, I don't know if you need to see the original to enjoy the sequel, so I may start with the sequel and then work my way backwards. Who knows? What about you, Trevor? Are you a fan of scary movies? And if so, what is your favorite scary movie to use a horror movie cliche. No worries. What's your favorite type of movie? Like your favorite type of genre? I was in Florida. I love American people, right? You've heard me say it a million times, and I'll say it even one more time on this stream. Canada is the greatest country in the world, which I think it is. It's partially because we have the best neighbors in the world. I love the United States. I love my brethren there, my family there, my friends there. So, yeah. So, as a Canadian, I'll say Americans are awesome. Now, like I said, I love Canada. I think it's the greatest country in the world. However, I love the States as well. Oh, Trevor, I got to disagree with you on that one. I love Canada, and in my opinion, Canada is the greatest country in the world. Thank you, Joshua Frawa. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Um, Remembrance Day is coming up, absolutely. Um, but Trevor, let me ask you then, which, in your opinion, is the greatest country in the world? I think if I recall correctly, you're American, if you mentioned that before. So if you are, then might it be America? I mean, I think our openness and our multiculturalism is one of the things that makes us the greatest country in the world. So the fact that a lot of people want to come to Canada, I think, is a sign that must be doing something right. It's kind of like restaurants, right? If you go to a restaurant and everybody's trying to get into the restaurant, it's a sign that the restaurant must have pretty good food. If a lot of people are trying to move to a country, it's probably a sign that the country's pretty great. Thank you, Joshua. No, that's very kind of you, and I love doing it. Let me ask you, Joshua, are you a Freemason yourself, or are you interested in Freemasonry? Well, maybe, but I'm doing pretty good in fairness. So, and Canada's given me a lot, right? I was somebody who feels very lucky to be Canadian. Part of that is because of all the things Canada gave to me and my family. Um, Growing up, right, and missing my legs, born without my legs, in a lot of countries in the world, even in 2025 or 1983 when I was born, um, being born missing your legs could be a death sentence or at least something that would severely limit your opportunities for a good life. And that was not the case. And a big part of that is because of Canada. No stone left unturned ceremony November 5th. That is awesome. I will 100% see if I can Google that and learn more about it. Very, very cool. Um, Thank you, Joshua. Yeah, it's something I love. I've been a Freemason since 2007. So almost 20 years, which is crazy to think. It is a um, fraternal organization, a civic, and a social group. It exists around the world, um, but it has different jurisdictions. So, um, for me, right, I'm a Freemason out of Ontario. My Grand Lodge is the Grand Lodge of Ontario, or Grand Lodge of Canada in the province of Ontario. If I go to Texas, their jurisdiction is Texas. I mean, to a certain extent, everything goes through phases, right? I mean, there was a group of people here, they were conquered. Maybe one day it'll happen to us, who knows? However, I think to what I like to think is Canada gave me, like I said, gave me a lot, gave my family a lot of opportunities. It would be wrong for me to want to deny those opportunities to others out of some type of selfishness. Right. And I think humans are actually capable of doing some pretty great things, including providing a great deal of support to others, whether they be immigrants or kind of native born. And either way, I think they deserve our support. So the idea of being conquered, I think, is kind of uh, it's not something I'm comfortable with in terms of words I would use. What's the other thing? This world is, or this land is your land. This land is my land. Hello, Jocelyn. Thank you for being here. How's it going? I mean, I guess you and I just have very different experiences, Trevor. But I mean, I was a probation officer for several years, and then I worked in a jail for several years, and also within the community. I've volunteered at a few different locations. In all cases, I had colleagues who were um, uh, I mean, a lot of them actually came from the Middle East, but some came from India. I've worked with people from India in professional wrestling capacities here, who've gone to school here. They all seem pretty incredible dudes. Some I liked, some I didn't, but that's no different than anybody else. But at no point did I ever feel like any of them were trying not to assimilate or turn Canada into something different. They all just seem to want a shot to create a better life for themselves, um, which is something commendable. Thank you, Josh. Well, I mean, the best way to do that, obviously, is to hit the like button, subscribe button, and to hit the notification bell. That way, whenever I um, come on stream, you'll get a notification and it'll pop up. But that's very kind of you. I adore Dearborn, Michigan, Trevor. So I live in Windsor, Ontario, which is about 20 minutes to 25 minutes from, I mean, maybe 30 minutes on a, crummy border or traffic from Dearborn. I've been to Dearborn, Michigan, maybe 2 dozen times. Most recently, I was in Dearborn, Michigan about 3 weeks ago. Um, and actually, one story I'll tell you, Trevor. So I went to Dearborn, Michigan to visit a Masonic lodge there, right? And after the meeting was finished, the brethren, along with myself as a visitor and other visitors, went out for dinner. We actually went for dinner at, and I'm going to explain this story in just 1 second. I'm just trying to remember the name of the pizza place because it kind of fits into the story. Um, dun, dun, dun. Buddies, the original Detroit style pizza. But anyways, so that lodge has a significant percentage of Muslim membership, which is really, really, as does most Masonic lodges in Dearborn, because Dearborn obviously has a very large Muslim population. But anyways, after the dinner, I was talking to the worshipful master of Dearborn Lodge, who's a Muslim. But he mentioned, right, one thing he's trying to do is after every meeting, they go out for dinner at a local restaurant because he wants to demonstrate to the city and to the businesses there that the Freemasons support Masonic. Sorry, the Freemasons support Dearborn businesses. Freemasons support Dearborn community. And he was speaking as a Freemason, but also keep in mind he's a Muslim and he's going to support local restaurants, right? Like Buddy's Detroit style pizza. Or, before that, we went to a burger place. Some of those restaurants are owned by, Muslim community members. Most are not, I think. But either way, it's about supporting the community, right? So he's Muslim and he is a Mason and he's trying to support his community. So, yes, I think that you can pick whatever term you want. It's not about assimilation. It's about the desire to create a better life for themselves through supporting of the community. And I think that's what they do. I mean, and even if they, some don't, to prejudge and then deny them the opportunity, I think is wrong. But I love Dearborn. Dearborn's a really cool city. Um, like I said, it's maybe 30 minutes from me, give or take. It depends on the border traffic and stuff. But I've got a pretty decent relationship with Dearborn. The Dearborn Masonic Lodge, by the way, is incredible. I think it deserves maybe more love than it's getting. Any news about the Freemasons and I have not heard anything. I heard that it went from Jamaica to Cuba. Obviously, I know for a fact there's a um, um, significant Masonic population in Cuba. So I guess same question, not so much anymore for Windsor, or sorry, not so much anymore for Jamaica, but for Cuba, which is if anybody knows of any Masons who are affected by the storm, by the hurricane, um, maybe either in terms of themselves personally or their Masonic building, whatever it might be, please let me know. I'll share it. Um, well, can't fight against what? Why would I want to fight my brothers, right? Not that I haven't had disagreements with my brothers in the past. Not that, there hasn't been times when it might have gone to a scrap or two, but um, uh, why would I want to fight anybody, but especially my Masonic brethren? Well, it might collapse, it might not. I honestly think we're doing pretty good. I know the feds are cutting the interest rates again, but I mean, I'm pretty proud to be a Canadian. Um, I think it's I think it's wonderful, and I don't think we're going to collapse. I mean, I came up in politics. I'm kind of a civilian now, but I was actually a member of the Conservative Party for years and years. And actually, I was a intern in the office of the Prime Minister under Stephen Harper. Interestingly enough, but I'm no fan of Pierre Poilievre. I'm definitely not a fan of Trump. You're not wrong, though. I think to a certain extent, the results of the election had to do with. I'm going to turn on my light. Actually, had to do with a pushback against what we were seeing in the States. Well, I think you let us sell our lumber to you because we have a lot of lumber and we have a very strong uh, uh, kind of lumber industry. I mean, we'll see, right, Trevor? We shall see, but I think you're maybe underestimating Canada and overestimating the States a little bit. I think we need each other more than you appreciate. Um, but anything's possible. But I would say I would also, not overestimate the strength of America right now. Whether you need Canada or not, right? You guys have some issues of your own. Every country has issues. Well, that's true. There's more trade between U.S. and Mexico than U.S. and Canada. Actually, I think I'm going to double check. Is there more trade between U.S. and Mexico or U.S. and... I'm not actually sure about that. Yeah, I thought so. Mexico is the U.S.'s largest trading partner. Canada is the U.S. second largest trading partner globally. So, U.S. trades first and foremost with Mexico, and then second largest is Canada. Well, I'm not sure he said that, Trevor, and Canada's not a joke. It's a great country. I think he might have been internet pilled a little bit. Um, which means you're watching a lot of perhaps Matt Walsh or similar such people and think that saying such things makes you shocking and cool. But Canada's a pretty wonderful country. I mean, I consider myself lucky. I remember growing up, like I said, There's a lot of places in the world where being born with no legs would, I mean, for most of human history, being born with no legs would be a death sentence, right? And then throughout much of the rest of that history, being born with no legs, it meant you would be placed in a home, meant you would be kind of a ward of the state. You couldn't live kind of an independent life. Canada provided me with a lot of opportunities. It's pretty incredible when I think about all the things that it provided me. I remember growing up, artificial limbs, the first ones were covered by the medical system. Um, my mom, she passed away a year ago from cancer, but or about 2 years ago. But going through all of the treatments and services that she received through the healthcare system, right in the States, and I'm not saying the States isn't a great country, but you consider how much that would have cost her in the States, it's insane. And the fact she got as much treatment as she did, it was, made me proud to be Canadian. And the doctors and nurses that took care of her as best as they could. Sometimes, right, no matter how hard you try and how much treatment you get, it's just, there's nothing that can be done. But yeah, things like that make me proud to be Canadian. Plus, our baseball team just beat your baseball team 7-1. So consider that as well, Trevor. At least the Blue Jays are no joke. Afternoon, Michael Moore. Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. And I hope you're having an excellent day. How is it going for you? And by the way, to all the members watching this, Michael, Trevor, I still have to do some videos exclusively for you. I'm working on it, I promise. Busy. Busy is good. I'm busy as well. I just did some wrestling a couple days ago. By the way, congratulations, Michael, to the Detroit Masonic Temple. You've had a couple of wrestling shows there, including recently NXT, which is really, really cool. So, yeah. I don't think that that's true. I'm going to check this out now. Number of Canadian players on blue. Well, there you go. We got one. We got one whole player, but I'm assuming the back off is mostly Canadian. Still, they're proud to play for Canada, or at least proud to play for Toronto. How's good day? That can't be true, Spirit. I mean, I understand football and basketball might be more popular than baseball, but I mean, it seemed like the game is pretty. There are 16 American players on the Los Angeles Dodgers 26-man roster. So you're about 50% American. Good day, Jocelyn. So, Spirit, do you prefer football or basketball? Interesting enough, though, because this is, after all, a Masonic stream, there have been historically several Masonic baseball teams throughout the years. Obviously not at the national level, but it's a really interesting kind of historical anecdote that many Masonic lodges actually formed baseball teams with other Masonic lodges or sponsored baseball teams throughout the years. So I always thought that was a really cool thing. Catalyst, do you like baseball? Speaking of my mom who passed away, she loved the Blue Jays. She would always watch them every year. She's passed away now, but I like to think she's up in heaven watching the Blue Jays and cheering them on. She would have been very happy with yesterday's result. Not so happy maybe with the result the night before when it went 18 innings. I was saying on social media, it was crazy. The game started. I was in Toronto um, for a wrestling show. The game starts. We completed the entire wrestling show. Uh, Tore down the ring. Drove from Toronto back to Windsor, which took about 4 hours. Got the truck unloaded, and while all that was happening, the game was still going on. Basically, the game took an entire wrestling show, plus a drive, plus a teardown, and a setup. So I thought that was pretty crazy. Well, I can drive. I don't. But growing up, when I first was able to drive, because they put hand controls on cars, right? So it's basically almost looks like kind of a boat throttle, where it's a drive um, next to the steering wheel, and you kind of push back, you pull back to go, and you push forward for your brake. And then you had your other hand, you had like a knob on the wheel that you used to kind of spin the wheel. So yeah, I drove for a few years. When I moved to Ottawa and then Windsor, using public transit was just a lot simpler and a lot cheaper. So I stuck with that. So when I say I drove back, I was in the car with other people driving back. But that's another cool thing about Canada, right? When I got my driver's license the first time, um, the province covered, or Canada covered, the cost of getting my first car modified. So the hand controls were included in it, and I could use it. Well, Aspen, I don't think you're going to get a lot of support on that, but okay. You do you, Aspen. Um, I don't know how popular that's going to be, though. But thank you for being here. As always, please take a moment to everybody joining, hit the like and subscribe button. And I hope everybody is doing very well. As Spirit, it's really hard to include links. The best way to add a link, if you want to, is to leave a comment on a video, but you really can't put links in a chat. Um, well, yeah, I agree with, not about the IQ statement, but I agree with Mr. Keeps about the idea of a trade deficit. Trade deficits aren't inherently negative or inherently positive, right? A trade deficit isn't proof of like, you can't use a trade deficit to be something inherently negative, right? I mean, the example people always use is like every single person has a trade deficit with their grocery store, in that, you know, we keep giving our grocery store money, they never give us money back. It's just, trade deficits are not inherently positive or negative. And yes, the car was still to drive normal. That was a really cool part about it, is you could drive it both normally or with the hand controls. So, Catalyst, are you cheering for the Dodgers this year, or this World Series, or do you have a dog in the fight? If I recall correctly, the last time the Blue Jays won the World Series, it was 92, 93. I'm going to double check that because I'm curious now. Last time last time Blue Jays won the World Series. '93 World Series. Okay, I guess that's the last time they won. So there you go. It's been 2003, 2013, 30 something years. Well, I'm not a huge, I mean, this is kind of going off topic of Freemasonry. However, as I've pointed out many times in the past, you cannot separate the success of a country. So you cannot separate the conditions in a country from the conditions of Freemasonry within that country. That includes the economic conditions. That includes things like free trade, tariffs. Anything that's going to have an economic impact on a country is going to have an impact on the Masonic lodges therein. everything from the government being shut down in the States to trade policy to in Canada, interest rate cuts, all that stuff trickles its way down sooner or later to Freemasonry. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, Canada tariffs the US and the US tariffed Canada, right? It's the current nature of the, if anything, I think the biggest issue is the uncertainty between the nobody seems to know if the tariffs are on, if they're off. I don't know what the rates are. Hmm. Well, Trump and Carney just had a dinner together. According to the news, they kept it civil. Um, so we'll see. I mean, I don't think tariffs are particularly good for the economy myself. I usually am pretty concerned about them. More of a free trade guy, but we'll see. According to this, Trump and Carney keep it civil over dinner ahead of APEC summit. Mr. Keeps is not wrong. I don't disagree with Mr. Keeps at all with what he's saying. He's the one who created the first deal, so what is up, Christopher? Thank you for being here. I hope you're doing well. That movie looks pretty good. I want to watch it. Called Monster, right? With the dude from Sons of Anarchy. I can't think of his name now. No, Trevor, but he did sign a new trade deal with Canada and Mexico in his first term, um, which basically um, replaced NAFTA, replaced much of NAFTA. Well, Christopher, I don't hate you, but if you do want to give me some super chats, then I'll like you even more. Free trade with, there you go. Dad is free trading with his neighbor's eggs. I have not been following the gambling scandal with I mean, I saw news, I saw the news headlines about it, but I don't know almost anything about it. Except I'm opposed to gambling in sports as a general rule. I think it's too easy for there to become conflicts of interest, too easy to throw games. Um, I think it's far too, if you allow gambling in sports, it's far too easy to develop conflicts of interests and to invite corruption, as well as you obviously run the risk of the people doing the gambling becoming addicted, getting taken advantage of, etc., etc. But that's just my opinion. Interesting. We're talking about baseball. Famous baseball players who were Freemasons include Ty Cobb, Cy Young, Honus Wagner, Rogers Hornsby, as well as Sports Executive Branch Rickey. Okay, so I guess the most famous Masons who were baseball players: Ty Cobb, Cy Young, Honus Wagner, Rogers Hornsby. Yeah, and I don't know. I have no issue with specific tariffs on specific products. Again, generally speaking, I'm more of a free trade guy. And because I'm more of a free trade guy, I tend to be very hesitant about tariffs as a rule, whether they're specifically targeting an industry or they're general tariffs. However, um, I do think in this case, it's just like what Mr. Keeps said. There was a New Deal, um, basically negotiated by Donald Trump. To then go back on it after, what, 4 years out of office seems like not. Yeah, I got what you're trying to say, Mr. Keeps Trade. Seems like not a cool thing to do. Um, you're lucky we're bringing Taiwan chips to North America. I mean, are you talking about the Chips Act? I'm not really sure to what you're referring there, Trevor. I assume you're talking about the Chips Act under Biden. Um, which is fine. I still appreciate him being here. By the way, in 4 minutes, we're going to start talking about Masonic sludge. Then I'm not sure to what you're referring with Taiwan chips. You're not wrong, Dad. The auto industry is going to be a huge worry when it comes to trade. Um, I think because we in Windsor, obviously we're a border town. We're not just a border town. We're a border town with one of the biggest cities in the United States. Um, I think maybe the one that might be bigger, like border town with a bigger city, might be Seattle, Washington to Vancouver. But yeah, you can email me a question, Spirit. I can do my best to answer you. I might not know everything, because also keep in mind if it's emulation ritual, I'll know a lot more about it. If it's Preston Webb or York ritual, Spirit, I may not have all the answers, but I could probably put you through to somebody who does, even if I don't necessarily know what the answers are. So certainly in Windsor, we're going to be hit by the potential not trade deficits, excuse me, the tariffs. I think some of the auto industry already has been hit hard by the tariffs, to be honest. And again, we do have Masons who work in the auto industry. If they find themselves out of work, job shut down, whatever it might be, how is that going to affect their ability to take part within Freemasonry? Um, Right. And for me, again, I'm not somebody who is, oh, it's brutal, Mr. Keeps. Yeah, and I'm one of those Canadians and Masons who've said several times, I'm not going to stop traveling to the States. I still love the United States. I love the people. And I mean, I can't travel to the States right now. I'm waiting to get my passport renewed. However, I have been traveling to the States throughout. All right, Ezra, I'm going to put you in a timeout for a little bit. But yeah, a lot of my friends who are involved in the tourism industry or hospitality, or just are in areas where there's usually a significant number of tourists, are saying like, yeah, it's really been affected negatively. The lack of people visiting. Um, all right, well, Spirit, shoot me off an email and I'll explain it to you. Um, at least what I understand it to be and how to use it properly versus improperly. So shoot me off an email. It's not just the Northeast. I mean, Mr. Keeps, Las Vegas is supposedly taking a really big hit. Los Angeles, Florida, a lot of snowbirds aren't traveling from Canada to Florida. And again, that's going to affect Freemasonry. Right? Any Mason whose job is in the tourism industry or who relies on tourists for their income and aren't getting that are going to start looking at potentially secondary jobs, which cuts into the time for Freemasonry. They may have to start budgeting money differently. Can they afford to pay their dues? Whatever it might be. But that's also on the other side of it. I mentioned this before, why I'm always arguing that whenever we have a Masonic event that brings in people from around the world or from around our jurisdiction or from even just, driving in from different towns like a couple hours away, we should be promoting those events. We should be taking the time to visit a local diner, a local restaurant. We should be taking the time to visit visit the sites. Mention that we're Freemasons. Stay in the hotels, whatever it is. We have the opportunity to give the towns in which we have Freemasonry, to give them a boost. Um, I said my favorite recent president, Trevor, not my favorite president of all time. My favorite president of my lifetime, since I was born in '83. My favorite president of all time would either be George Washington or LBJ. Um, you're not wrong, Dad. It was a real shame to see, in my opinion, to see the demolition. I mean, I'm not crazy upset by it, but as someone who's done some work when it comes to historical restorations and historical construction projects, it does not seem like the current demolition was done with an eye to preserving any type of important historical or important heritage qualities. So if the cornerstone was in the east part of the building, then yeah, I guess east wing of the building, then I guess we're not going to find it. If, however, the cornerstone is in the southwest part of the building, part of the White House, which some reports say it is, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll find it. Um, well, Trevor, he passed the Rights Act, so there you go. But I think it's one of those cool little Masonic stories, one of those cool little Masonic mysteries. The idea that they basically lost a cornerstone. It might not even be in the White House. There's some talk I read that actually what happened is they did the ceremony. The Masons did a ceremony to kind of prepare the cornerstone. Um, then they actually took the cornerstone with them to a bar. They all had some drinks, had a few too many drinks. They forgot the cornerstone in the tavern or in the pub. They left, and when they came back the next day, the cornerstone was gone. I was just missing. I heard that story. I heard somebody say that the cornerstone actually was taken from the White House site and used in another building project. Um, so we do not know where the White House cornerstone is. We don't even know for sure if George Washington was present when the cornerstone ceremony took place. Some people say he was actually in somewhere in Pennsylvania. Favorite presidents: Nixon, number one. Well, he did the Environmental Protection Act, to his credit. JFK, okay. Teddy Roosevelt. Well, one out of three of those are Freemasons. So Teddy Roosevelt was a Freemason. Um, yeah, it's a fine selection. Like I said, if I had to pick my favorite presidents of all time, oh my gosh, it would go, um, like I said, George Washington, FDR, um, LBJ, um, Biden, um, Teddy Roosevelt. Sure, I put him on there because of his work with preservation of national parks. Trying to think of any. Sure, I'm missing some other ones. Passing the Civil Rights Act, which I don't think 1964, right? I think that is a pretty huge deal, and I honestly don't think I don't think any other president could have got that passed. I don't think JFK could have got the Civil Rights Act passed. Um, I think, based on what I understand about LBJ, whatever people may think of him, um, he was supposedly a very good politician, very much able to work with, you know, Congress, whatever it is, to get it passed. So I think, yeah, the Civil Rights Act, passing it, whatever other issues I have with him, certainly I have huge issues with Vietnam, etc., etc. I think he deserves a ton of credit for getting that passed. Sometimes it can just be one thing, right? It can just be one thing that tips the scales massively in someone's favor. He did, and that is not okay. So that makes me not like him. But on the balance, I think the Civil Rights Act had far more of a lasting positive impact than Vietnam had a lasting negative impact. Vietnam, in the moment, I think, this is just my opinion, was far more negative, right, and harmful to the country. However, I think here we are, I can't even, 74, 84, 94, 2004. What? So 64 to 74 to 84 to 94 to 2004, 2014, 2024. So 62 years in, I think the Civil Rights Act has had a much longer lasting impact and a much more positive impact. Well, at the time, that was pretty terrible, and obviously, it still is like it's obviously a pick your term, like a tragedy. I don't even know what the word to use. A tragedy, horrible, because it was, and I mean, in some ways, this goes back to what I was talking about with institutional support or lack thereof, right? After World War One, we saw in Freemasonry a massive boom period. And it was primarily driven by veterans returning from World War One, wanting to kind of recapture the camaraderie they felt, as well as, I think, try to continue supporting their local communities and fighting for those communities through Freemasonry. After World War Two, you saw the same thing. Um, a lot of veterans returning, wanting to be part of Freemasonry for the same reasons. And you saw a second boom period of Freemasonry in the 1950s. However, after Vietnam, you did not see the returning Vietnam veterans show any interest, at least in any significant numbers, of wanting to join Masonic lodges or wanting to join Freemasonry. And I think that's a lot to do with the fact that the way that the Vietnam War was handled, the fact that it existed at all, a lot of people lost faith in institutions, lost trust in civic or civil society. And unfortunately, that included Freemasonry, which had been very much considered a part of the institutional civic fabric of communities. And a lot of veterans returning kind of felt that those institutions and that fabric had let them down or did not catch them when they needed the support. So certainly, I think the tragedy of the Vietnam War, amongst other things, one of them was that it resulted in a significant distrust of institutions, whether it be civil or civic, and that's when you start to see a significant drop in people joining these groups, not just Freemasonry, Moose, Elks, whatever it might be. You just see a real decline in in the civic fabric in general. Well, I'd rather we don't depopulate if I could help it. So I have no favorite to least favorite forms of depopulation. I'd rather we simply not depopulate. Anybody who's here, I hope you stay here for as long as your natural life. Is the 1 ounce silver? I do not know what the 1 ounce silver maple is. I can look that up on Google quickly. Do you mean the coin? That's my best guess. But no, a coin is not Masonic. I have a poop ton of Masonic coins. Don't know what that one is. So my favorite thing about Teddy Roosevelt is, well, I guess there's two things. So my favorite thing from the presidential perspective is, I could be wrong. However, I believe that Teddy Roosevelt protected or created more national parklands than any other president. Let me just check this quickly. Oh, so according to Google, he did not create the most. So according to this, Roosevelt's presidency marked a massive expansion of the national park system and a commitment to conservation that shaped America's public lands. So, his desire to protect nature and commitment to conservation and expansion of the national park system. That's my favorite thing about Teddy Roosevelt's presidency. My favorite thing about Teddy Roosevelt the Mason is, one of the most interesting stories is, he was vice president when he got his third degree, or raised to a master mason. Let me just check something quickly to make sure I'm getting this right. Yes, so Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, was the vice president under William McKinley. While he was vice president, he was getting raised to the Master Mason degree. However, because how often do you get to see a Master Mason degree on a vice president, a sitting vice president, his raising was so well attended by Masons that he actually couldn't get into the lodge room. The building was so packed with people, he couldn't walk through them to get to the lodge room. So what he had to do actually is, they had to carry him over all the people who were present. They basically picked him up, they put him on a chair, and they carried him over all of the attendees, got him to the stairs, and then he was able to walk up from there. So, I mean, he was not a small dude either. So it was not easy to carry him up the stairs. Let me see if I can find the date and the time, or sorry, the actual year. Hold on just 1 second. I'm trying to think of the 1901. Yeah. April, according to Google, April 24th, 1901. So that's a cool little story. Why is it called a raising? So there's a couple of different explanations that I've heard or been given, being raised to the third degree. So I don't know for sure which one is correct, but the one that I tend to go with is, a big part of the third degree is this idea of, like, a recognition of our mortality, of the fact that everybody, Mason, not Mason, whatever it is, everybody has to face their own mortality, has to face the fact that sooner or later they will die. However, the idea that from this you can be, in a sense, like, you can be raised figuratively from this. You don't have to kind of, I don't know what the term is, wallow in this idea of your mortality, but rather it can be a way to raise you into appreciating your life and appreciating the fact that you're here, and that while you're here, you can make a difference. That's kind of, The lower step is kind of a recognition of your mortality. The raising is being raised to a higher level of appreciating your life, appreciating that you're here, and using those opportunities to help those. So kind of raising from almost death to life in a certain way, or recognition of death to a recognition of life, if that makes sense. But that's one explanation. I've also heard it's just this idea of quote unquote raising the candidate. It's a term for kind of picking somebody up. But you do that in all the degrees in a certain way, right? Like at some point you're told to kind of rise. So those are the explanations I've been given. Yuri, that is true. I mean, I don't know what a Khazarian wedding ritual is. I've seen it at a couple Jewish weddings I attended where they put the bride and groom on a chair, I believe. This one was more about expedience. Actually, I should double check the chair thing. If he was actually, I know they carried him, but I don't know if he was on a chair. Let me double check. I think he was. Teddy Roosevelt carried to third degree. Hold on just one second. I just want to make sure to his... Oh, yeah, here it is. The raising, the Master Mason of the Year, Theodore Roosevelt. Brother Roosevelt arrived at the steps of the Oyster Bay Bank building prior to the scheduled start of the event, with hundreds watching his every move, many of whom unsuccessfully tried to catch his attention. Assessing the large crowd and realizing he may be late for his own degree, Roosevelt was faced with a dilemma. It is not known who made the extraordinary suggestion, but within moments, the muscular Roosevelt was raised over the heads of the visitors, crowded in the narrow staircase, and physically passed up 3 flights of stairs. Standing 5'10" and weighing 210 pounds, this was no easy task for men not accustomed to vigorous exercise. For the athletic Teddy Roosevelt, however, this was just another day in the life of a man living to the fullest. So I guess he wasn't put on the chair, but he was carried up the stairs. So that's another thing that makes me love Teddy Roosevelt, the fact that he cared so much about attending his Masonic third degree that he was literally raised over the head of his brothers. Sorry, Darth, what metal are those? Sorry, Darth Clorox, I missed your question. It depends. I mean, some of them aren't even metal. Like, this is wood. This coin is wooden from Masonry on the Frontier. We have also this is a poker chip, right? So it's whatever poker chips are made out of. I think it's made out of like, I'm not sure what the material is. Some type of like fiber almost. The rest of these, I don't know. I think most of them are probably, I have no idea what type of metal they're made out of. This one, they feel like they're pretty substantive. So I don't think they're cheaping out on the metal. I'm assuming bronze, silver. This one is kind of looks like it's made out of bronze. Sorry, Josh, Lynn. I like these coins too much. These are mementos of my travels. So I did want to, at some point, get into this discussion on Masonic sludge, and anybody who potentially has a corporate job, or really, I think you could argue almost any type of job is going to be aware at some level of this idea of quote unquote sludge and what that means, right? Corporate sludge, actually, let me just change this here. What is, oh, sorry. What is Masonic sludge? Right. So when we're talking about this idea of sludge, quote unquote, corporate sludge, which is where I first heard this term, it refers to the unnecessary bureaucratic obstacles, excessive friction, and hidden complexities within a process that slows things down, increases costs, and makes it harder for people to achieve their goals or receive services. Right? And this is from Google. It's the AI, but it's pretty accurate. Popularized by behavioral scientists like Cass Sunstein, it includes elements like, convoluted forms, redundant approvals, unclear instructions, and lengthy wait times, all of which create unjustified burdens on individuals and hinder organizational efficiency. So, some examples of corporate sludge: complex approvals needing multiple signatures or excessive steps for simple decisions, repetitive paperwork having to provide the same information multiple times across different forms or systems, difficult navigation, poorly designed websites, confusing jargon or mandatory fields, excessive wait times, lengthy hold times for customer service or unexplained delays in processes, obscure cancellation processes or policies, making it difficult for customers to cancel subscriptions or services, and outdated technology. Mr. Keese may know something about that, right? How sludge impacts individuals and organizations. For citizens, or I think you could also use the term for customers, I'm not a huge fan of using the term citizen and customer interchangeably. I think that it I think it sounds a little bit cynical in some ways, but for citizens slash customers, sludge erodes trust, it wastes time and money, and can lead people to giving up on accessing benefits or services. So, for example, let's use healthcare, right? If you have a healthcare system that has excessive amounts of sludge, and that could mean, for example, doctors not having a sufficient amount of time to meet with patients because they're arguing with insurance companies about covering medications, or they have an excessive amount of paperwork to complete in order to protect themselves from being sued, or they're ordering unlimited numbers or unnecessary tests, whatever it is. If you have a healthcare system that has this excessive amount of sludge, at what point do citizens or people who are sick decide they're not going to bother going to the doctor to get checked out? They'll just, whatever they're dealing with, they'll just, leave it be. And does that create the risk then of it gets, the whatever they're dealing with gets worse and worse and worse until a problem that could have been resolved quickly now is a major problem? Red tape is one type of sludge, sure. It's not an exclusive type, but red tape can absolutely be a type of sludge, right? Where, again, if you go to the doctors because you need help and the doctor gives you, 20 forms to fill out, to take to your, this is more of a state's issue, but to take to your insurance company, take back to the doctor, your claim gets denied, so then you need to get a new form filled out. At what point do you just give up and decide you're not going to go to the hospital to get this thing checked out? Or, maybe you try to get treatment, but there's so many different forms that need to be completed, so many hoops to run through, you end up giving up on accessing the insurance. You either pay for it yourself and then go into debt, medical debt, or you just don't take the treatment. Um, right? I think that that's something that is very common. This South Park had a great episode about that, right? Which I really the whole the bit where Cartman needs to go on Ozempic or something like that. Needs to get a medication that his doctor prescribes, but the insurance company refuses to cover it. And then the whole episode is the characters just navigating the American healthcare system, going from insurance company to doctor to then a second doctor to then back to the insurance company, getting it denied, needing to go back to the doctor, needing to get another form filled out. And the whole episode is them just filling out forms and paperwork and going from the hospital to the insurance company and back to the hospital until I forget the ending. I think at the ending they just gave up, and he didn't get his medicine. But it also, right, it erodes trust. That's another issue with sludge. It erodes trust. If not we don't have to use the healthcare system. Let's say a corporation is offering some type of giveaway or prize or service, whatever it is. However, they either don't deliver on the service or they don't deliver in the time that they said they would because, Dad brings up a really good point. So that's a great example of it. We'll use Dad's example. Let's say you have a issue with some type of service you're accessing. Let's say your television goes out, whatever it is. Sludge would be trying to contact the business, the corporation responsible for your services, but you have to talk to a computer. The computer refuses to send you to a real person, or there's an excessive wait time on the phone, whatever it might be, and a consequence of that is you just give up and you don't use the service anymore. Right? Sludge for employees, for people who maybe work either for the government, for a company, whatever it might be, reduces productivity, stifles innovation, and increases, oh my gosh, let me just get a drink here. Reduces productivity, stifles innovation, increases administrative burdens, and shifting focus from high-value work. For businesses, increased operational costs, frustrated customers, and creates barriers to innovation. So the question is, what in Freemasonry, or what sludge exists within Freemasonry that affects potentially all of the above, right? And every jurisdiction is different. Every jurisdiction has its own kind of challenges as well as its own progress. But off the top of my head, when I'm thinking about this, I think we divide it up into three groups as well. Sludge, as it relates to non-Masons who are interested in joining Freemasonry or interested in learning more about Freemasonry, the type of sludge that they may be experiencing. And the top one, I would say, is excessive wait time to hear back from a lodge, excessive wait times to hear back from a Grand Lodge. So if you're interested in joining Freemasonry or even interested in just learning more about Freemasonry, but it takes, let's say you make contact with the Masonic Lodge through email, you make contact with them through the Grand Lodge, you give them a call. If it takes 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks to, hear back from your lodge or hear back from the lodge you contacted, are you likely to get in touch with them? Or are you likely to still want to join? Or are you going to feel like they are ignoring you? All right. So the time between the initial contact and the response, that's an example of Masonic sludge for a non-Mason interested in learning more. Um, the potentially out of date websites that don't have current information, that is also an example of sludge. Because if you're going onto a Masonic Lodge's website, you take the time to search it, to look for it, and you find out that they do not have up to date current information. Maybe that even causes you to go try to attend a meeting that the website says is scheduled for such and such a date. You show up, there's no meeting. You've now taken time out of your day to attend a lodge only to find out there is no lodge. Is that going to, that's going to erode trust, because you're not going to trust what any website says about Freemasonry anymore. However, it's also wasting the time of the brother who attempts to show, of the applicant or of the interested party who wants to learn more about Freemasonry. Freemasonry doesn't have employees, or, it has a couple maybe if you consider like Grand Lodge buildings and secretaries, but what Freemasonry really has is members. And sludge within our Masonic membership is, reducing productivity, it's stifling innovation, increasing administrative burdens. That's a huge one, increasing administrative burdens. I can say for myself, from when I first joined Freemasonry and became a secretary to presently, the number of administrative burdens, and keep in mind, Freemasonry is completely voluntary, right? The number of administrative burdens being placed on secretaries and treasurers is not reducing. It's actually going up. The number of forms that need to be filled out has increased dramatically in the last several years. The number of rules we're dealing with have increased, and those are all valuable, or at least they are done with a valuable purpose in mind. However, that doesn't change the fact that it is a type of burden, it is a type of sludge that reduces, let's say we as Freemasons want to organize an educational event, which you can consider to be a high value project. However, if we're busy making sure we have all of our forms filled out for Grand Lodge in advance, making sure all of our paperwork is in order, will we have time to engage in high value work, right? Will we be interested in innovative and new programs if every program and every idea we have first requires, a dispensation request, followed by conversations with the Grand Lodge, followed by another dispensation request? Like, at what point will we just say either we're not going to be interested in new innovative ideas, goodbye, Dad, or we'll start, we as Freemasons start to do things where we start to cut corners, ignore rules, because it's easier to get things done in that way, right? And again, increasing administrative burdens. And then Freemasonry is not a business, but for the Grand Lodges, sludge results in increased operational costs, frustrated customers, and barriers to innovation. So again, how many ideas, programs, thoughts, how many innovations have found themselves not tried, not implemented because of administrative sludge, because of the challenges of needing to get a dispensation approved, or needing to provide more information, or the secretary's too busy with other tasks to get the proper dispensations, right? How much does the administrative costs within Freemasonry increase the operational costs or frustrate the membership, right? If you're showing up, one of the famous kind of jokes, and I don't even, consider it a joke per se, but one of the famous Masonic sayings that you often hear, right, is George Washington did not become a Freemason to hear the minutes read. Um, Really, what they're trying to say with that is, right, if you're joining Freemasonry, you're probably joining for a reason other than completing administrative tasks as required by the Grand Lodge or as required by your Masonic jurisdiction. And at a certain point, if you feel that all a meeting is a chance to complete administrative tasks and administrative procedures, that's going to result in frustrated membership. That's going to result in members not showing up. Now, part of that falls on us as Freemasons who are administrators to make sure we're explaining why this stuff matters. Because there are times, I think, when what we view as sludge is not actually sludge. Like Mr. Keeps, I'm not sure if you're still there or not, but in the world of cybersecurity and internet security for businesses, I'm willing to bet there are several very important things that employees need to do to keep themselves safe and to keep their business safe. But to the employee, if it's not been properly explained, they may view it as sludge. They may say, oh, this is just red tape. It's actually not important. It's interfering with the actual valuable work I need to do. But I'm guessing, as somebody in cybersecurity, there's probably many examples where you've had to explain, actually, no, this work that you consider to be sludge, that you consider to be low value work, or you consider to be inefficient, is actually really important. And here's why. And some of that does fall on Freemasonry. There are examples of things that actually are important, that do matter, that are actually high value. However, if we in Freemasonry are not explaining to the membership why it's important, why it matters, and why it's high value, they're going to become frustrated and potentially leave Freemasonry, because in their mind, it's going to be considered unimportant or sludge, right? So in some cases, there is a lot of that. Like I talked about this before, right? My favorite memory in all of Freemasonry is January 19th and January 20th of 2024, which were two really, really incredible days within my Masonic journey. It was, to my knowledge, the largest gathering of Freemasons outside of Grand Lodge in Ontario. However, the reason those 2 days, and most people who are Masons would say those were high value days, those were high value jobs, or those were high value events. However, the reason we could perform, the reason we could do those events was all of the boring, thank you Pennywise, was all of those boring, quote unquote, sludge type of jobs that had to be done beforehand. We had to have minutes recorded and read at meetings so people knew what our progress was and where we were when it came to organizing the events. And reading the minutes made sure people knew about not just that event, but all the events, what had been organized thus far, and what needed to be organized moving forward. Having a budget and having budget presentations meant that we could properly budget the resources for the events and know we'd had enough money to perform them, so we don't find ourselves a week before the event not being able to pay our bills. And so that was incredibly important, right? Committee meetings, talking about, do we have all of our permits for the event, for the public celebration, for the banquet? I mean, all of that stuff may have been viewed as sludge to some people. if they're showing up to a meeting and hearing minutes being read about which special guests have responded, which haven't, but it's still valuable and necessary. Now, the obvious argument and question is, to what extent can some of those things be set aside, right? One of the way to deal with quote unquote Masonic sludge is the creation of committees. And so what you can do is, if you have an event coming up, you create a committee to focus on that event. They deal with all the details, and then at every meeting, they provide a brief report to the membership at large regarding how the planning is going. And for example, if they perhaps need to set aside more money in the budget, if they need to set aside less money, or maybe they're coming in under budget, right? But I think the first thing we need to keep in mind when it comes to sludge is, just because we don't understand why something is taking place or why something is necessary, that doesn't mean it's not important. That doesn't mean it doesn't matter. And that doesn't mean that it is truly sludge. Mr. Keeps pointed out in cybersecurity, a lot of people don't understand why something is valuable, why something is necessary. And if we as Freemasons are not properly communicating why it's important, it may frustrate people who may end up viewing something as sludge when it's valuable. So the first way that we in Freemasonry can deal with Masonic sludge is good communication, excessive in some ways communication, but that communication explains why these things are valuable, why these things matter, and why they're important. The second way to deal with Masonic sludge, potentially, is the creation of committees to deal with special events or special programs or whatever it might be. Oh, Mr. Keeps, that is a perfect example. And this goes into this idea of sludge. And this is a huge challenge that I've had within Freemasonry. And I'm gonna be back in just 1 second, Mr. Keeps. I need to grab more pop, because you just brought up a really valid point. And this is a great example of sludge, and something I've been struggling with as a former secretary. I'm back. So you may get, as let's say you're the secretary of a Masonic lodge, you may get in your inbox, hopefully you have a separate inbox exclusively for Masonic correspondence. But you may get 5, 6, 7 emails in a day announcing some type of special event that's taking place within your jurisdiction. It could be like within your province, it could be within your specific Masonic district. And then you as a secretary have to decide, are you going to take each individual email and forward it to the membership, in which case they get 5 emails that day with 5 different events? Or do you wait and at a certain point within, let's say, the month, combine the information from all 5 emails into one email and send it off with maybe a label that says of high importance, right? Because both in some ways are examples of sludge. The former, and I had this conversation with somebody, he was he was an engineer. He got a lot of emails in a day. And he said, look, I get literally hundreds of emails every day. Um, if, I get 100 emails for work, and then you send me 5 additional emails about Masonic items, I may check one, I may check two. I'm not going to check all 5. He said I'm either going to just not see them because I have too many other emails, or I'm not going to care, or I'm going to assume that they're repeats. And in some cases, it might be a repeat because, example of wasting somebody's time of sludge, if you're a secretary and there's a Masonic event happening, you may get an email from the Grand Lodge announcing the Masonic event is taking place. You may also get an email from your district secretary announcing the same event is taking place. You may also get an email from the worshipful master announcing the same event taking place. So you've got 3 emails, all of which deal with one event or one announcement. If I then, as a secretary, forward each email to the brethren or to the membership, again, that brother who's getting 100 emails plus 5 Masonic ones, if he takes the time to click on 3 emails, all of which have the exact same information, at what point does he start to think, well, okay, these emails are a waste of my time, I'm not going to check them. Or I'll check 1 or 2 maybe, but I'm not going to bother checking them all because it's likely just a combination. Sorry, it's likely just repeating information. And, he said, I don't have time to check your emails plus my work emails unless it's really important. So you decide, okay, you're not going to send multiple emails because you don't want to overwhelm the brothers. You don't want to overwhelm the brothers' inbox. And you don't want to potentially send him repeating information. However, you then run into the other option. If you choose to send simply 1 email, thinking that 1 email with all the information necessary, 1 email is easier to overlook than 5 emails, so it's more likely to get lost. Depending on the type of information you're sending and the type of information that's in the words in the subject line, it may accidentally get picked up as spam. Again, it's easier for 1 email to be placed into a spam folder than it is for 5 emails, for all 5 to make it to the spam folder. 1 or 2 might make it through. And if the email is particularly long, that's a type of sludge as well, the length of the email, because you may have the time to read the first paragraph, you may have the time to read the second paragraph, but do you have time to read the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th paragraph? Right? Especially, so then you have to make decisions. Well, do I put the most important information in all caps? Do I put the most important information first? But how do you decide what is the most important information, right? So what Mr. Keeps is talking about there is a perfect example of a type of sludge that we in Freemasonry are struggling with. How do we communicate effectively when we know so many brothers have massive amounts of emails they're receiving per day? And how do we make sure that we are not adding to their burdens of the number of emails they're expected to see, while also adequately communicating what needs to be communicated? And I've tried everything and have had very mixed results. I've tried sending 1 email with all the information. I've tried sending multiple emails. I've tried using all caps. I've tried using very important labels. I've tried using read receipts. I've tried everything and had minimal success, unfortunately, but I'm still working on it. Mr. Keeps, let me know if you ever came across any solutions that seems to work. Maybe I can steal some ideas from you, because I've been struggling with getting people to read their emails. Um, I'm sure you have as well, it sounds like. So have you found any solutions to this problem, or are we both having the exact same struggles? AJ Create, what is up, AJ? Thank you for being here. And don't forget to everybody listening to this, what you can do is take a few moments to hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're new, and potentially maybe you're interested in doing a super chat of even 99 cents. Like one idea is I suggest people create a separate email address and a separate email account exclusively for their membership, for their Masonic emails. However, I think the danger with that is, again, it doesn't really solve the problem because, yes, if you have an email address exclusively for Masonic emails, you're more likely to, you're going to see them. They're not going to get lost in the shuffle. They're not going to get lost in junk. You're not going to miss them between, 30 work emails or 100 work emails. But the danger is, at the end of the day, are you going to be dedicated enough to actually take the time to switch off of your personal account or your work account and actually log into another email account? Actually, I did a really interesting no worries, you're a local Spurs fan. Thank you for being here. Study. Let me see if I can find this. Number of... This channel, Mavis, is about Freemasonry. Shoot, I saw this somewhere. Actually, Mr. Keats, you may have an answer. Freemasonry is a civic social group. It's a social club. It's a fraternity. It's existed for almost over 300 years. I have to find. I think something like 30 or not 30, like 20% of addresses are like not checked regularly. Basically, maybe they're created to get a free trial on some type of streaming service, or they're created for one specific purpose. They end up never being checked, and emails just kind of grow there. At what point is there a danger that within our Masonic lodges or a Masonic email address will become like a phantom email address that nobody ever checks because they're too busy checking their main emails? It's one of those things where there's a lot of different challenges to this whole thing. But yeah, those are some examples of Masonic sludge. And I wish I had better ways to deal with it. I think the biggest way at the start is adequate communication of why these things matter and why these things are important. But thank you for being here, Mavis. Let me know if you searched this stream, if you come across it, if you're subscribed, if you have any questions about Freemasonry, other than what it is. Like I said, it's a civic group and a social club. I've been a Freemason since 2007. And I love it. That's an interesting idea, Rondo. Lodges providing email addresses for the membership. That's a really cool idea. I mean, lodges will sometimes have a website with a back end, which is, you get, when you join, you get a login and a password. And you can go to the website and sign into the back end, and you can actually see the announcements and the events and what's coming up, right? And so it's not that you receive the messages, but it's on you to go to the website and check it out. So that's really cool. And a really good idea. But that, again, what is the danger of, what is the danger of those becoming phantom email addresses, where, especially if a member ends up demitting, right? What happens to his email account? Things like that. But thank you, Marbus, for being here. I'm going to be ending, or Mabus, I'm going to be ending this stream shortly. Thank you, as always, everybody who's joined. It's not too late to do a quick super chat of just 99 cents, whatever you want. I will be back on at 5 on my personal account, youtube.com/Cameron Adamson, with your friend and mine, Smokey the Clown. And I hope to see everybody there. Thank you, though, so much, everybody who's been here. I truly appreciate it. And Rondo, before you go, let me know how it's going with you. We're going to give this another, let's say, 4 minutes. Just see if anybody else jumps on quickly. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. If you have any ideas, Rondo, I'd love to hear them. We're going to give it another 2 minutes. I will be back on very soon on my other channel, though. I hope to see you all there. Okay, well, let's end this stream, I think. But I'll see everybody again shortly, back at 1 a.m. All right, thank you, guys.